The material that you're about to listen to and engage with came from our 2017 Missiology Lectures, when myself, along with my colleague Johnny Ramirez Johnson, said we need to do this next 2017 Missiology Lectures on this topic of race, theology, and mission. And we invited Dr. Love Seacrest to engage with us in that process. We wanted to explore the challenging questions regarding racism and ethnocentrism and xenophobia and all of those issues from the perspective of world Christianity with regard to how these realities have existed in many parts of the world, and also as part of the colonial mission endeavors.
It is fascinating to think that the realities we were talking about are not the experiences of one individual or even one society. We're talking about whiteness as a way of defining the world. And the conference and the conference presenters address time and again this epistemology, this way of making meaning. It has also been described as colonization and post-colonization. The question is not about guilt, it's about engagement. It's about what are we going to do with what we have inherited. So the fact that we're having the conversation should not point a finger at you as a listener or viewer.
But these are hard conversations. The conversation about race is one that has been deferred for so long and so often, over and over again. As soon as we get close to having a meaningful conversation about race, we recoil from the pain of it. And so in our lectures, you'll see some of that pain emerge. You'll see some people who have long experienced racism express and declare and name experiences that they have had that have been deeply formative, deformative even. So this conversation is not a pretty one, but we're having it.
As observers, as listeners, you will be engaging, and we invite you to invite the Holy Spirit. The three of us pray a lot about this series. We humbly submitted to God and pleaded for God's mercy to lead us. We are feeble, and combined, we are imperfect, and we have prayed that the Lord will fill the gaps. And the conversation is only a starter. It is in your hands. It is in your community. It is in your family. And most importantly, it is on your knees.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I sincerely thank the organizers of this conference for the kind invitation. It is good to be at Fuller Theological Seminary. I am truly honored and humbled to be included in the list of participants for this important conference on mission, theology, and race. I bring you greetings from Doha, Qatar, the land of the sheikhs. My topic today is on ambivalent modalities, mission, race, and the African factor. I remember my professor of preaching at Union Theological Seminary, Reverend Forbes. He told us that when you're speaking, the first thing you should do is to claim your space. And I think I've already done that. I think I'm comfortable. And I'm ready to get down to business. I start with these opening quotations, and the first one is by Jean McElla. Father Jean McElla from the Cameroon said this in his book, My Faith as an African. If Christianity seeks to be anything more than a vast effort to swindle a mass of mystified blacks, the churches of Africa must all join to come to terms with this question. So this is a very important question. And Father Makela was known as a powerful critique of the political status quo in the Cameroon and also a powerful critique of power. One African philosopher, Achille Mbembe, actually described him as a watchman. So Father Makela was a good champion of a theology under the trees. So a very good champion of grassroots Christianity. So basically, we're looking at three requirements for doing African Christianity: knowing, doing, and being. Knowing, doing, and being. So Father Makela joins a host of other post-colonial Christian intellectuals like Lamin Sane, Ingubert Mving, Kwame Bediako, Ebosi Bolanga, Banaset Bujo, Masiamba Oduyoye Ogbukalu, in providing powerful narratives about the purpose of Christianity in Africa. These scholars have utilized a sound hermeneutics of suspicion to understand and reflect on the purpose of the Christian faith in Africa. This opening quotation by Jean Makela brings out these themes of responsibility. And I also have this, the second quotation, or the second quote from the Acts of Apostles, which underlines, diversity and inclusion. So my presentation is on African Christianity, the story of African Christianity. And African Christianity is deeply rooted in faith and practice, in orthodoxy and orthopraxis, in dogma and contextual theologies. And these themes are profoundly expressed in mission-inspired churches and African independent churches. And all these processes are obviously interconnected. The crux of the issue is, how do you engage in a prophetic mission in Africa? And my presentation hopefully will tease out some of the essential points for understanding this. The introduction provides a review of the lay of the land. So basic introduction, bringing out, the historical legacy of missionary agents and agencies in Africa. And these are varied and complex. It is full of narratives about domination, resistance, autonomy, and nationalism. Mission and evangelism are central to the Christian faith. However, the intersection between race and mission in Africa is a subject that is often ignored or glossed over by theologians, missiologists, and church historians. So this makes the task of missiologists very important. And I want to talk about what Andrew Walsh said, that missiologists or define missiologists as academic subversives. So missiologists have a tendency of raising new questions, introducing new perspectives and new data, identifying new questions and problems within different fields. So beyond emotive and sensational responses to Christian mission in Africa, it is imperative to understand the layout of a very complex terrain. So Africa is very complex. Africa is a very big continent. Africa is a continent. It's not just, it's not just only one. And we also need to understand the paradoxes of missionary engagement in Africa, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it's also important to understand the linkages between mission and race. And these are obviously part of the presentation today. The historical transmission and transformation of African Christianity appears on a variety of interrelated levels: missions, conversions, struggles for autonomy, charismatic renewals, and other creative ways. Africans have shaped Christianity for themselves and have appropriated it within the context of their own worldview and culture. So the importance of African agency in the transmission and transformation of African Christianity is very important. Africans were not passive recipients of Christianity. Any narrative that suggests otherwise belongs to a moribund intellectual tradition, period. Engaging and encountering the crucible of mission and race. So basically looking at the missionary enterprise and some of the issues that have been engendered by this enterprise. It is in an effort to seek contextual relevance, missionary agents have endeavored to develop meaningful paradigms that will that can reconcile faith and practice. So this is it's about bringing faith and practice together. Yeah. So this is very important to my presentation today. We need to understand the importance of the Great Commission, but the Great Commission never operates in a vacuum. It must be connected. It must be connected to various social, cultural, political, and economic realities. So this is about faith and practice. Christian mission has been tested in different contexts and periods. Moving on. We need to look at some of the elements of mission, which include, these include witness and proclamation, liturgy, prayer, contemplation, justice, peace, and the integrity of creation, interreligious dialogue, enculturation, and reconciliation. All these themes are related to what we're trying to do here, trying to find out the connections between mission and race. The process of resolving the dilemma between faith and practice has given the impetus to creative and contextual ideas in mission and theology, like the woman in a desperate search for a lost coin. Missiologists continue to grapple with meaningful methodologies for engaging the different dimensions of mission. Race matters deal with identity, both personal and communal. Race remains a contested issue in Africa, as well as in many parts of the world. The issue of racism is also real in the history of Christian missions in Africa, and it cannot be swept under the carpet. So we need to come to terms with this. Race is not simply about skin pigmentation. Rather, it conveys attitudes, feelings, and worldviews. The concomitant responses to these sensibilities are integral to the African imaginations concerning mission and piety. These responses are also connected to the unexpected moments and movements in African Christianity. Contextual theologies take the issues of race and identity seriously. These two categories must be properly recognized and analyzed in order to come to terms with the deep connections between the Gospels and the redemptive transformation, or the Gospels and redemptive transformation in different contexts. In this vein, the issues of race and identity go beyond mere rhetoric or abstract philosophical construct. They underscore an essential aspect of human life. Contemporary global events from Charlottesville to Kigali compel us to challenge structures, injunctions, and ideologies that suppress human dignity and freedom. For all intent and purpose, Christian missions must provide a platform for proclaiming the prophetic profile of the Christian gospel. One of the tasks of prophetic missiology, even within African Christianity, is to take the crucified down from the cross. And I'm quoting Takaso Mofokeng from South Africa. The linkages between mission and race are deeply embedded in the litany of events and responses at certain historical moments in African Christianity. So obviously, African Christianity is very big, it's huge. So we can't deal with the whole narrative about African Christianity. So I'm going to identify some key examples, some key narratives that can help us to understand the connections between race and mission in African Christianity. Narratives about race matters have the power to awaken in people and communities deep-seated ambitions, dreams, and frustrations. And I quoted Maya Angelou here. Maya Angelou, the great poet of dramatic pain, once wrote that she knew why a caged bird must sing. Caged birds sing because they desire their freedom, and they also have something to say. So basically trying to understand what African Christians are trying to say. So, and since necessity remains the mother of invention, the tempo of the song is determined by several contextual considerations. The voices from the underside of history ought to challenge some of the normative approaches to mission and theology. So voices from the underside of history. So African Christianity belongs to this. An African proverb says, until the lions have their historians, tales of the hunt shall always glorify the hunter. So it's good that African Christians can actually speak. So speak out, speak in their own voices. The African terrain. So I'm going to start, by talking about the African terrain in the 19th century, which was saturated with conflicting claims about the purpose of mission. At this period, Victorian representations and narratives about race, wittingly and unwittingly, reinforced by the hubris of white missionaries, elucidated various responses from Africans. At this period, colonial structures provide the institutional framework for several racist policies and programs. And a good example of this is the story of Bishop Ajayi Crowther. So looking at mission and race, Bishop Ajayi Crowther, a Yoruba Christian. I'm a Yoruba Christian, so I think I should use that as a very good example. So Crowther was born in Nigeria in the year the slave trade was outlawed by the British Parliament. But as it turned out, Crowther was captured in his village, Oshogun, by Muslim slave raiders. He was sold into slavery in Lagos. In Lagos, he was put on a slave ship, heading for Brazil. But he was rescued by the British and relocated in Freetown, a settlement founded in 1787 for the primary purpose of settling freed slaves. From the time of resettlement, Crowther took on the role of an anti-slavery crusader. I think I'm stuck. Uh-oh. Here you go. The 19th century was characterized by political uncertainties and social upheavals in many African societies. It was also a time when new political and theological parameters were introduced to many African communities. The story and legacy of Bishop Ajayi Crowther provide a compelling vantage point for engaging the dynamics of mission and race in African Christianity. And I see the story of Crowder as an accommodationist paradigm in race and mission. So the 19th century was the worst of times, and it was also the best of times, to quote a famous line by Charles Dickens. Crowder and the Niger Mission. So looking at the role of Crowder and the Niger Mission, and even the role of Crowder in the translation of the Bible into many languages. His Yoruba Bible of 1851 was the first one in an African language. Crowder led the Niger Mission that started in 1841. The main agents of the mission were Africans. The turning point in this narrative was the humiliation of Ajayi Crowder. And this is a very long story, but to get to the gist of the story, a financial committee chaired by Reverend J.B. Wood was constituted by the CMS, the Church Missionary Society, to investigate the activities of the Niger Mission. Wood summarily dismissed the Niger Mission as a monumental failure without any concrete evidence and sources. He sent his report to the CMS in London, and that was the final nail in the coffin of Crowder's denigration and defeat. He was denied his right to read the report. Crowder and his African agents were rudely assailed by overzealous CMS agents. A group of young and ambitious European missionaries condemned the Niger Mission as spiritually stale and too extravagant. Their motive was too obvious. They wanted Crowder and his associates out of the picture so that they could show the whole world the best modus operandi for proclaiming the good news in Africa. The beleaguered Bishop Crowder was morally cannibalized by an unrelenting imperial mandate. Imperial mandates about mission were often anchored on an unmitigated teacher's complex. To borrow a phrase from my former teacher at Union, Kosuke Koyama, teacher's complex. This perspective operates on a one-dimensional mode. One party or one group eternally knows the truth, and that's the white missionaries, and the other group should sit down or sit back to be perpetually taught and spoon-fed. Looking at this, the story of the financial committee, which was the final blow, and which led to the resignation of Bishop Crowder. But we also, need to look at, some of the positive contributions of Bishop Crowder. That Bishop Crowder, or the efforts of Bishop Crowder, paved the way for what Lamin Sanneh has described as acute indigenization in African Christianity. Enculturation, indigenization, trying to understand African, or to understand Christianity from an African perspective. The other story that is important for our discussion is the moratorium debate. And I titled this Missionaries Go Home, or Masking the Moratorium Debate. The debate on moratorium, 1971 to 1975, generated pertinent issues related to mission and race in African Christianity. It developed into a full-blown debate about indigenization, autonomy, and reverse mission. While the story of Bishop Crowder evokes an accommodationist paradigm or model in mission and race, the moratorium debate, on the other hand, exhibited a rejectionist paradigm in the history of missions in Africa. The debate was an integral part of the indigenization project in African Christianity, in post-colonial Africa. It vividly underscored African frustration and impatience with the mode of mission initiated indigenization. So this is one way of speaking as Africans and coming to terms with the Christian faith in Africa. The essence of the moratorium debate was about developing missiological partnerships and cooperation between the West and Africa. So we can also look at the work of John Gatu, the Secretary General of the Presbyterian Church in Kenya. He came to the US in 1971, and he started this debate about moratorium. Yeah, so so this is about moratorium of Christian mission, Christian mission, funded and supervised by foreign agents. So that's this idea of missionaries go home, white missionaries go home. So Africa, just allow African people to handle their own business. An African proverb states that as long as you sleep on a mat that belongs to someone else, you will never sleep easy. So we can talk more about that. So it's imperative to develop missiological and theological categories that emanate from the African worldview. But at the same time, we need to understand that the moratorium debate was not based on a complete or a total repudiation of mission. It's not about saying that mission should stop completely. It was a rejection of the patrimony that characterized missionary work in Africa in the 19th century. You see, and we saw that in the treatment of Bishop Crowder. So the moratorium debate was not an attempt to repeal and replace. And I said that, so to repeal and replace mission, you see, but a concrete effort to add mutuality and reciprocity into the lexicon of missiological ventures. Okay, hallelujah. And my main thesis is about developing what I describe as a non-bourgeoisie missiology. Yeah. So I take a cue. I borrow this from the work of Joseph Dundas, Non-Bourgeoisie Theology, which is a study of an African experience of Jesus, and also focusing on the Missio Dei, the importance of Missio Dei. I locate the concept of Missio Dei at the heart of an egalitarian understanding of mission. And this is what I call the non-bourgeoisie missiology. This process underscores an incarnational model of mission. It expresses the universal mission of the church because of its unique combination of Christ and the incarnation. Mission is energized and enriched by the diversity of many voices and races. People with different spiritual sensibilities contribute to the process of spreading the good news to the ends of the earth. Diversity and inclusion in mission are not liabilities, rather they are factors to be celebrated. This perspective resonates with insights from intersectional theology, which boldly rejects an attempt to exclude anyone from theological discourse on the basis of race, class, and gender. Intersectional theology appreciates everyone's experience in exploring and expanding our thoughts about God, creation, and the church. It also challenges the structure that contributes to oppression and injustice. Racism, in all its various dimensions and manifestations, has no place in the prophetic mandate of the church. My conclusion title is Mission, Not Manipulation. Mission, not manipulation. In the grand scheme of things, God's grandiose plan for the world transcends all human tendencies to control and manipulate the good news. The beauty of mission lies in freedom, mutuality, and justice. Our human ego must be sublimated in order to let God be God and allow God's reign to prevail in the world. This is a missionary agenda that is centered on the crucified mind, rather than being driven by teachers' complex. So the importance of the crucified mind. Yeah, mission is about welcoming the other in the same manner, in the same way. God continues to embrace everyone. Mission promises a prophetic profile and template that can move communities beyond tragedy. And I borrowed that from Raymond Nebo, beyond tragedy. And I also, this quotation, Lord, I believe, help thou my unbelief. Racism relates to the human tendency to separate and create oppressive hierarchical structures in the society. This is the height of human manipulation. The good news of Jesus Christ, on the other hand, provides the power to embrace the other. I think I've said that. Such a vision is crucial in our post-colonial world, yearning for freedom, redemption, and unity. Racism is one of the veils that keeps humanity from experiencing God. Undoubtedly, it constitutes a blemish on the face of the church. It is also a blatant contradiction of the powerful concept of imago Dei that affirms that all human beings are created in the image of God. The discussion on moratorium also encourage what we can call reverse mission. So these are, the effort of African missionaries actually coming to the West. And this has also engendered a new way of looking at the good news. This actually happened in Detroit in September. So this is an African church, and some of the members of the community actually called the police because the members of the community felt that these people were making too much noise. So the police came, and this was what happened in Detroit. So this actually happened in Detroit in September. And this is... Hallelujah. So the video underscores an adventurist paradigm. Adventurist. So basically, I've looked at three paradigms: accommodationist, rejectionist, and the last one is this adventurist. Adventure. You see, adventurist paradigm in mission that has been inaugurated by African churches in the diaspora. And this should encourage further research and books. And so maybe Professor Amos Young and I can write a book about this in the future, inshallah, God willing. Thank you very much. God bless you.